Donning protective clothing and a helmet, Phil was lowered down the hole, and as he sank farther and farther down, a feeling of dread overcame him. Something was very wrong. We already had nuclear-powered spacecraft defending the Earth from alien aggressors. In 1946, Major Richards worked with the RAND Corporation and designed the first atomic manned military rocket. And by the 1950s, he was commander of the Deep Space Fleet of the Orion-class spaceships that tackled enemy UFOs, Greys, who hated humans and Raptors, and through their deviousness actually controlled the complex and perverted it to their own monstrous ends. And just 1 hour after the mission had started, Brigadier General Aderholt ordered total recall. We've all heard rumours of a secret space program, but genuinely, does it or did it actually exist? Is it true that whilst the Apollo program was trying its best to reach the moon, supposedly on a wing and a prayer, and in a tin can, we already had nuclear-powered spacecraft defending the Earth from alien aggressors? And were there really battles in space, like the Battle of Vesta, which we'll be looking at here? Certainly the US government are not dismissing the subject. Indeed, a report, ordered by Donald Rumsfeld as Secretary of Defense, was made on the subject for the Joint Chiefs of Staff in July 2001. Now, the leaked covering letter doesn't prove the matter one way or the other, but if it were total nonsense, would they bother to consider it? Let us take a close look at the matter. This is Vesta, one of the billions of asteroids that orbit the Sun in a donut-shaped belt between Mars and Jupiter. But unlike most of them, it's very large, well over 300 miles in diameter and strangely bright. It has attracted a huge amount of interest, not just from astronomers on Earth, but also, it seems, from extraterrestrials. And it was because of what was meant to be a peaceful conference at Vesta in early August of 1979 that a huge space battle was apparently fought between the Reptoid collective with their nefarious plans and the brave human astronauts and alien allies from this secret space program. First, it would be a good idea to take a look at who was involved. Let's start with the aliens. The story actually begins 65 million years ago, when a huge meteor impact may have caused the extinction of the dinosaurs. It's claimed that just prior to the event, an alien race visited the Earth and took hundreds of velociraptors, or raptors, off planet to save them. But why would they want to save them? Well, in some ways, the raptors were the humans of the time, highly evolved with large brains, sophisticated pack-hunting methods, one of the clues of high intelligence, and being one of the few dinosaurs that were actually warm-blooded. Unfortunately, their rescuers had underestimated the deviousness of these early raptors, who simply eliminated them all. Humans have taken about 6 million years to evolve. Imagine how evolved the raptors will be now after 65 million years. From their home in the Draco constellation, the raptors have colonized many planets and have a vast empire. Some live on Earth, often in swamps in South America. They take pride in being dinosaurs. They're about 9 feet tall with distinctive red eyes, stand in a running position, have long, powerful tails and strong legs with 3 attack claws and opposable thumbs. Now, despite their aggressive and imperial natures, they are, fortunately, allies of ours, simply because of a nostalgic fondness for their mother planet, Earth. Their mortal enemies are the Reptoids who evolved from them. They have yellow, lizard-slit eyes, are shapeshifters, and are the reptilians who have taken the place of many of the Earth's ruling and business elite. And they head the collective, plotting to take over the Earth. They regard humans as unintelligent and uncivilized, and so have no qualms about collecting us to be, amongst other things, off-world soldiers whose memories have been wiped. The Reptoids are allied with the Trogs, an insect species, cunning, nasty, sadistic and dangerous. So these are the aliens involved in the space battles. Raptors on our side, Reptoids and Trogs against us. OK, we've looked at the aliens. Now let us think about the humans who are involved in the secret space program. The star, as it were, of the story is Captain Mark Richards, the only survivor, who has worked tirelessly to get the story out despite threats to his life. But we need to go back a little further, as Captain Richards comes from a very significant family. In the 1930s, Captain Richards' paternal grandfather, Ellis Lloyd Richards Sr., invented the Richards antimatter drive, which made the secret space program possible. He was a brilliant electronics engineer who worked with Tesla as well as on the Manhattan Project and the Philadelphia experiment. But the main power behind the program was Captain Richards' father, Major Ellis Lloyd Richards Jr., otherwise known as the Dutchman. In 1946, Major Richards worked with the Rand Corporation and designed the first atomic manned military rocket. And by the 1950s, he was commander of the deep space fleet of the Orion-class spaceships that tackled enemy UFOs, and in which his son, Captain Mark Richards, fought. The nuclear-powered Orion-class spaceships, which played such an important part in the protection of the Earth, were officially scrapped for the Apollo program, but work on the Orions continued, covertly. Now let us take a look at the Major's son, the only person associated with the secret space program who's still alive, Captain Mark Richards. At the age of 8, he attended an interstellar treaty conference in a Scottish castle with his father, where he played with juvenile raptors and met Prince Naga Draconis, the son of the Raptor Empress. The children were taught by other friendly aliens how to soul travel through dimensional gates. The conference was about the future of the Earth, but unfortunately there were hostile factions there, advancing their own agendas. The conference ended badly, with other species demanding that humans should surrender the planet. This experience, good and bad, made a huge impression on Mark, and he dedicated his life to defending Earth in any way he could. Aged 18, he joined the army, and as a lieutenant during the Vietnam War, was flying helicopters and assisted with the evacuation of Saigon. The following year, in 1976, he was made commander of the Orion-class spaceship, the USS Valkyrie, the heart of the secret space program. Amongst many other missions, Mark headed Project Moondust, a covert operation by the US Air Force which, under the cover of Cold War espionage, was actually involved with the retrieval of alien UFO crashes. He flew various craft, earthly and alien, and in one extraordinary adventure he flew a biointelligent female spaceship called Minerva. He personally commanded the Orion-class USS Hornet in the Battle of China Gates against aliens who had developed tectonic weapons, creating earthquakes, volcanoes and tsunami, to be launched from a secret base in Antarctica. Mark was the hero of many space battles, including of course Vesta, a battle that was completely unexpected. Because in August of 1979 there was what was meant to be a peaceful conference on Vesta. But the collectives, led by the Reptoids, ambushed the base and took possession of a quantum ubiquity atomic destabilizer, or quad superweapon, stored there to attack Earth in a plot to turn humanity into a slave race and plunder the Earth for resources. Mark was on his honeymoon with his first wife. One night he woke up with a nightmare premonition that something bad was going to happen. The telephone rang. It was his father, Major Richards.
Mark, get to Vandenberg Air Force Base as soon as you can.
Major Richards then contacted Prince Naga Draconis, son of the Empress of the Draconian Empire, who was the science officer on Mark's ship the Valkyrie. The transcript of their conversation survived in the Major's written report.
Greetings, Prince Naga Draconis, firstborn of the Imperial House of Dark Claw, Earth's most respected and trusted ally.
Ah, my human brother, Major of the Air Force of the United States, Commander-in-Chief of the United Nations Space Force, Ellis Lloyd Richards. It is always a pleasure.
Sadly, Naga, I have to bring you bad news. Our deep space warning system has spotted a number of ships approaching our solar system. We are under attack. We need you on the Valkyrie.
Shortly after, at a NASA base, the secret space program astronauts gathered in a conference room. Ellison Onizuka, David Griggs, Ronald McNair, and orbital flight manager, astronaut Deke Slayton, who addressed them.
Fellow astronauts, this is our time. This is what we have been preparing for. Our mission, to save the Earth and all humanity from alien invasion, a mission from which many of us, maybe all of us, may not return, and, as you know, about which we may never talk. May luck be on our side. Let's go."
After the conference, Mark and Prince Naga Draconis travelled to the Valkyrie on a Draconian short-range interceptor, a triangular-shaped craft with a magnetic field generator which could push aside dust and other space debris. For protection, the cockpit was near the centre of the triangle, and although there were no windows, it had a 360-degree virtual reality system that made it feel that you were suspended in space. A strange experience. The interceptor had an active impulse receptor, or AIR, that warned of any object up to a light-year away. And as they were approaching the Valkyrie, parked in Vesta orbit, the air system confirmed that hundreds of high-powered ships were rushing towards the solar system. Mark, now on board the Valkyrie, looked through the observation window and, to his surprise, saw not Vesta, but a cluster of iridescent spheres connected by silvery spokes. Mark and his ship had been teleported millions of light-years away to a distant galaxy. On his view screen appeared a cat-like species called the Felis avis, a feline alien with 2 huge luminous eyes, whiskers and red fur, delicate, with small clawed feet, 6 fingers and 6 toes, and frills along the side of the body hiding its wings. After he had recovered his composure, Mark said, "I am Captain Mark Richards from the solar system of Earth." The cat, whom Mark nicknamed Scarlet, started to sing a strange but stirring melody.
"I know you probably don't remember me. You were a child. I taught you how to soul travel through dimensional gates. That's how I brought you here. I have something to say. You wish to protect your solar system's inner planets from exploitation or invasion. You have impressive weapons that quantum ubiquity, atomic disabulers and whatnot, but you rarely use them. This has been misinterpreted by the collective seismicness and passivity. You will be facing hundreds of drug fighters, but despite that you will be victorious. But I must tell you that you must never leave the secret space program, even though I know you will.
And with that, the Valkyrie instantly returned to the asteroid belt. There, Mark was horrified to see the battle was already in full swing. As part of the Reptoid collective, hundreds of Trog fighter ships were circling Vesta, releasing huge numbers of missiles that mercilessly bombarded the base and the Allied ships. And in less than an hour, the collective had taken the base and had captured all of its weapons, including the deadly quad. Things were looking grim. Mark was totally bewildered. The cat alien Scarlet had said that they would win the day. But how could they? They were totally outnumbered and outgunned. Then, suddenly and mysteriously, no more missiles, and the Trog scout ships appeared to retreat. What was going on? Mark conferred with his father, Major Richards, who was commanding the California. Perhaps the battle had ended. But why? What Mark and the Allies didn't know was that the collectives hadn't brought much equipment through the dimensional gate, assuming that the Allies, who were thought to be weak-willed and passive, wouldn't put up much of a fight. The Trogs had simply run out of weapons, and because they weren't familiar with the advanced ones on Vesta base, they couldn't use them either. Major Richards gave the order to close in on the base, though carefully, in case the hiatus was just a trap. It wasn't a trap, but they had underestimated the Trogs and their hive mentality where individuals were of no importance, only the total collective. They did have one more weapon: themselves. Wave after wave of mass Trog scout ships, hundreds at a time, aimed themselves directly at the Allied craft in kamikaze-style attacks. They descended, flaming fireballs smashing into the ships, with oxygen from the living quarters and fuel exploding into space. Terrible damage was done. Of the 9 ships that Dragon Squadron had started with, 2 had been completely destroyed, and another 3 incapacitated. Major Richards ordered the remaining 4 Orion-class ships to make for Vesta base. The battle there was brief, very brief. The Trogs were unarmed and paid the price. Dragon Squadron had been victorious. Not a ship, not a single living Trog remained. The fight was over.
Well done, Mark,
said his father.
That was a near one.
They looked around the base. So much damage. Rooms gutted by fire, equipment lying smashed on the floor, and Trog bodies everywhere.
Well, I'm glad we're not clearing up,
said Mark, laughing.
Battles can be rather messy, can't they? Anyway, I think we've earned a bit of downtime now.
But as he said that, his father's transponder bleeped.
Yes, Major Richards.
Silence as he listened.
I see. We'll set off straight away. Sorry, Mark. No rest for the virtuous. Problems. Serious problems at Dulce base in New Mexico. Get saddled up. Duty calls.
And with that, they returned to their Orion-class ships and set off back to Earth. Perhaps Scarlet, the cat alien, had been wrong. There was no sign of Mark resigning from the secret space program. Well, not yet. Not until after Dulce. Now, since all this information has come from Captain Mark Richards through his brave wife, Joanne from Earth Defence Headquarters, it's not unreasonable to ask if his story is credible, particularly as all the other people named here died after the Battle of Dulce base, in accidents. One major pointer is that he had developed skin cancer in exactly the pattern one would expect from someone exposed to radiation whilst wearing a helmet. In the medical record, the military doctor wrote, "If I didn't know better, I'd say this is like the same kind of problem that astronauts have." If only he'd known. But what was the nature of the problem at Dulce base? To answer that, we need to jump forward in time to 1990. The Human Genome Project, where our DNA was mapped, thus allowing us to modify our bodies and minds, was arguably one of the greatest achievements of humanity. Or was it? A great achievement, certainly. But was it solely a human achievement? There is concrete evidence, which we'll be seeing soon, that it started nearly half a century before the official date, 1990, through a human-alien scientific cooperation, but one that, as we'll see, went badly wrong. The base's location was beneath the Arcolita Mesa, near the town of Dulce in New Mexico. It was a huge military underground facility, originally built in the 1940s and controlled by the aliens under the not very watchful eye of the NSA. So, who were these aliens that were controlling Dulce? Principally 2 species. First, the Raptors from the Draco constellation, who were officially in charge of Dulce and were allied to the humans. Then the Greys, who hated humans and Raptors, and through their deviousness actually controlled the complex and perverted it to their own monstrous ends. And though they weren't aliens, the collaborators, made up of politicians, wealthy civilians and businessmen who wanted the alien technology at any cost and collaborated secretly with the Greys, hiding what was really going on at Dulce from the NSA. How did the creation of such a facility come about? Well, following 16 UFO crashes between 1947 and 1952, where 117 alien bodies were recovered, 4 of them alive, the NSA had set up Project Aquarius in 1953, with Department X to assess threats from extraterrestrials and Department Z to react and neutralize any threats. At the same time, Delta Group was set up, a hand-picked collection of Air Force Special Operations Command, Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, and, critically, members of the secret space program. Following the crashes, the aliens contacted the US government, and in 1954 the Greada Treaty was signed. Dulce was to be designed by the friendly Raptors and run by the NSA, though unfortunately the NSC was given day-to-day control and grievously sold out to the increasing and inhuman demands of the malevolent Greys. So what was the purpose of Dulce? Well, the stated purpose. It was entirely benevolent. The raptors, descended from earthly dinosaurs, were fascinated by humans and wanted to understand us better, both psychologically and genetically. And in return, they would help us to advance our civilization, particularly in medicine and space travel. So what happened to change that? The Greater Treaty had been broken, but the NSC was so eager to get alien technology and the knowledge of human control that it collaborated with the Greys in their takeover of the base. Then the Greys twisted the Raptors' humane agenda, went far beyond merely mapping our genome, and aimed to develop mind control techniques including, as they hoped, remote viewing. Needless to say, powerful mind control techniques would be very useful to the NSC and their masters, both politically and commercially. The Raptors, of course, objected.
What's your problem?
Asked the lead Grey.
Humans do equally unpleasant things in their laboratories with monkeys, dogs, mice.
Yes,
Replied the Raptors feebly.
but those are less evolved creatures.
And that's what humans are to us. Both of us. Anyway, I'm sure that you can think of some good reasons not to squeal.
The Raptors were silenced, for the time being. What was the layout of Dulce Base? Well, it comprised 7 levels, connected by magnetic elevators. The top level was for security and communications, plus the main craft landing port and associated hangars. And beneath that was the accommodation level for thousands of human staff, and a large area for craft maintenance. Then, at level 3, executives and administration, and the cell electrostatic disruption device, a terrible weapon secretly installed by the Greys. Mind control experiments were held on level 4, ones that eventually led to MK Ultra and beyond, plus vast, highly advanced laboratories. The aliens, at least 18,000 in number, lived on level 5, with the genetic experiment section on level 6, and over both levels, the critical electromagnetic generators that powered the entire complex. And finally, at the lowest known level, level 7, cryogenic experiments into suspended animation. From level 2, one main shuttle connected the base with Los Alamos, but there were numerous others. Furthermore, there were over 100 hidden entrances and exits leading to the surface, including one main landing port, used by alien craft. As with the other portals, this one was disguised by a holographic projection, and is thought to be the strange hollow to the right of this image, a geological formation not usually associated with mesas. What evidence is there for Dulce's existence and use? Well, apart from the reports, there is concrete evidence of genetics research at Dulce, released by Thomas Edwin Costello, a security officer at the base, who had been so shocked by what he had seen that he felt the world should know. This genome sequencing was amongst his papers, found after he disappeared, a year after releasing his story. For nearly 40 years, the US government had more or less left Dulce to work unsupervised, but then something happened that could not be ignored. Late August 1979. It was meant to be a simple job. Phil Schneider, a government geologist who had worked on the original Dulce base, was asked to explore the possibility of expanding the facility. It may be of interest to know that Phil came from a fascinating scientific background. His father, Otto Oskar Schneider, was brought to the US as part of Operation Paperclip after the Second World War and became a doctor in the Space Medicine Group. And, during an autopsy of several crew members of the famous or infamous Philadelphia experiment, discovered that many had gold-tipped fibre implants surgically embedded in their brains. Anyway, back to Dulce base. Guarded by the NSA's famous Blue Berets, Phil intended sinking 4 exploratory holes near the base. The first hole was completed, and to everyone's shock, clouds of evil-smelling smoke billowed from it. What on earth had they uncovered? They moved closer to take a better look, but the fumes nearly overpowered them. Donning protective clothing and a helmet, Phil was lowered down the hole, and as he sank farther and farther down, a feeling of dread overcame him. Something was very wrong. Then he saw it. A lone grey was moving threateningly towards him. There weren't meant to be any caverns here, and certainly no greys. As Phil emerged from the hole, his fears increased, There were more of them. Sensing a real threat, he drew his pistol and shot at one of them, but it was too late. Another grey waved its hand and a beam of highly energized blue light smashed into Phil, wounding him badly. Urgently, the blue berets pulled up the cage and returned to rescue Phil, who clambered into the cage whilst the soldier gave cover. Fortunately, they escaped. But the job was no longer simple. "Contact the NSA," Phil shouted, wincing with pain. And with that, everything changed. Brigadier General Harry C. Aderholt took charge and contacted Major Ellis Lloyd Richards, who, as commander of the secret space program, had just led the Dragon Squadron in defeating the Trogs on the Vesta asteroid earlier that month. The Major and his son, Captain Mark Richards, dashed back to Earth, with Prince Naga Draconis, son of the Raptor Empress, who had helped at Vesta, following in his interceptor. Meanwhile, intelligence was gathered from the Raptors at the base, and a plan of attack was formed. At the heart of it, the main electromagnetic generators needed to be put out of action. All the base's defence systems depended upon them. Aderholt made Major Richards the commanding officer, put Captain Mark Richards in charge of the attack, with the Combat Assault Teams, or CATs, under the control of Colonel Roger Donlan and manned by Delta Force, Navy SEALs, US Air Force Special Operations Command, and the NSA Department Z. The Greys felt completely relaxed, knowing that all portals were protected by holographic projections and advanced weaponry. Sure, they were aware that the mass accelerator beam riders on which the alien craft rode in and out of the base might be detectable and give away their main landing port, but they didn't care, as they believed that the humans had no craft small and weaponized enough to enter it safely. But they were wrong. They didn't know about the experimental craft, the X-22, a cross between a highly manoeuvrable helicopter and a fast-moving plane, and loaded with powerful armoury. Within hours of their return from Vesta, Major Ellis Richards ordered his son Mark to take control of Cat-3 and lead the assault in an X-22. He would enter the landing port, incapacitate the alien weaponry, and thus clear the way for the main assault team, the NSA Z team, who would follow him 5 miles behind in dozens of Army helicopters. On the surface of Dulce, Colonel Charles Beckwith, creator of Delta Force, Captain William Leathers, and Colonel Roger Donlan, commanders of Combat Assault Teams 1, 2 and 4 respectively, gathered their land forces, ready to enter the portals once they were clear. At the same time, following intelligence, Colonel Beckwith and troops from US Air Force Special Operations Command and Delta Force stormed the Big Barn, a so-called dairy in nearby Boonville, a factory that produced food, both normal and grotesque, for the human and alien residents of the base. Beckwith's troops forced their way into the shuttles and, undetected by the lax security at the Big Barn, entered the base. An alien shuttlecraft was detected, approaching the main landing portal. As expected, the hologram was switched off, and, after hovering out of sight, Captain Richards followed the discraft through the portal. Taking cover behind the discraft, astronaut Ronald McNair, Mark's co-pilot and laser weapons expert, blasted the aliens' main gun mounts, disabling them. In the chaos, the Greys fled from the control room and left the port's holographic barrier off. Wave after wave of assault helicopters entered the landing port. They too took cover behind the huge discraft. Suddenly, the craft rose up and made to leave, to bring reinforcements from other bases controlled by Greys. At great personal risk, Mark rammed the top edge of the discraft and fired 4 rockets. The discs span out of control, crashing into 2 triangle fighter crafts that had posed a genuine threat to the mission. In the resulting confusion, the helicopter troops took the control room and managed to disable the sonic weapons pods and security sensors. All holographic systems were shut off, revealing the entire base's entrances, and immediately the Cat-1 and Cat-2 ground troops entered Level 2 and joined those who had come from the Big Barn Dairy. But they had a problem. They needed the heavy weaponry brought by the Cat-3 helicopter troops, who unfortunately couldn't leave Level 1 because of fortified doors that led to the central hub. Though his X-22 craft was damaged, Captain Mark Richards managed to fire the remaining rockets, blew the doors off, and led his troops into the hub. Meanwhile, the Cat 4 SEAL team entered the base through a water intake on level 5 and disabled the electromagnetic generators. All the alien weapons and defence systems lost power. Then, suddenly and curiously, the Greys were nowhere to be seen.
"Where are they?"
shouted Colonel Stuart Rooser, leading the material acquisition team whose task was to find and take control of the most deadly of the aliens' weapons, the Cell Electrostatic Disruption, or CED, device that literally would disintegrate any living tissue. The Greys, because of their hive mentality where the individual was of no importance and the mission was everything, had gathered on level 3 where the CED device was located. They intended setting it off and eliminating every living thing on the base, humans and aliens alike.
"What's happening?"
asked their leader as one of the alien engineers collapsed to the floor, coughing and shaking uncontrollably. Then more and more. It may have been a mystery to the Greys, but it wasn't to Lieutenant Colonel Ellison Onizuka, another hero from the Vesta campaign, who had been advised through the NSA by John V. Chambers, a Bechtel tunnelling engineer, that the Greys, unlike the Earth-originated Raptors, had no resistance to earthly germs. The Greys on level 3 were dying. Onizuka had disabled the air filters. The rescue mission had been successful and would soon be over. Well, at least that's what the Allies thought. But to their dismay they found thousands of human captives on levels 6 and 7, and escaping to freedom was now the #1 priority as the air was becoming fetid and potentially harmful. The Cat 4 troops helped hundreds to escape to safety in underground shuttles to many NSA bases near and far. Astronauts David Griggs and Ronald McNair had found 2 alien craft, a disc and a triangle fighter craft in the hangars of level 1. Raptor pilots, who were familiar with the controls, flew with hundreds of rescued captives to Area 51, as did Colonel Rooser, who had found a huge disc shuttle in the maintenance section on level 2 and, with Raptor help, raced off with many more. And just 1 hour after the mission had started, Brigadier General Aderholt ordered total recall. A little early, as it turned out. Lieutenant Colonel Onizuka took control of the landing port's sole undamaged triangle fighter craft and, with Mark Richards in his repaired X-22 loaded with humans, prepared to leave. But from an unseen passage on the side of the landing port, Greys wearing respirators began firing heavy weapons at them. The X-22, though able now to fly, had no functioning armoury. They were sitting ducks.
"What's that?"
shouted Mark. Sirens wailed and echoed around the landing port. The CED device, though captured, had already been activated by the Greys.
"Get the remaining humans and Raptors down to level 6 and 7. It might give them some protection."
By great good fortune, Prince Naga Draconis arrived and provided cover fire to allow them to escape. Shortly after, the CED device went off, and the Greys' reign of terror had ended. There were many heroes on that day, and a lot of valuable alien technology was confiscated, including, of course, genetics information that was moved to a government laboratory in Walnut Creek, California, and later used in the Human Genome Project. But one of those heroes had had enough. Captain Mark Richards returned home. He was exhausted, wounded, had lost many close friends and colleagues, and just wanted a normal life. During the Vesta mission against the Trogs earlier in August, Scarlet, a member of a strange cat species, had given him some advice.
You will be victorious, but I must tell you that you must never leave the secret space program, even though I know you will.
Forgetting or ignoring Scarlet's advice, Mark resigned from the secret space program. And, a few days later, there was a knock at his door. He was accused of masterminding a murder, and by 1984 he was in prison. And sadly, he's the only senior person still alive to tell the story. Anyway, Mark will be released soon, and will be able to tell us everything, first hand. That should prove very interesting.